sip of beer.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, don't start yet.
Okay.
Go
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here at the house of Dr. John LeBar in beautiful Durham, North Carolina, with three special individuals. Al Canonico. Say hey, Al.
Hello. Yeah.
John LeBar.
Hey.
And Larry McDonald.
Hey.
And we're gathering together just to kind of chat about old school PE, how we got involved, who some of our mentors were, and just reflecting back on life. Because between the three of these folks and myself, there's a lot of years of experience. So yeah, a lot of years. So we'll start with John since he's right in front of me. John, you want just kind of tell us about how you got involved in physical education and just what was it that caused you to go into the profession of teaching, coaching?
Well, I always know I wanted to be a teacher and a coach. I have two brothers that are both teachers for 30 years.
Yeah.
And when I went to college, I said, well, I'm going to do this, and I was involved in athletics too. Yeah. And I had a great guy who was my swimming coach in college, and he encouraged me to be a physical education major, and I was interested in it anyway. So I said, great, I'm going to do this. And after I finished that, I said, well, maybe I better get another degree, a master's degree at Emporia State in Kansas. And from there, I had a great graduate advisor, and he helped me get a great first job at Rice University, where I had another great mentor, which helped me so much I cannot tell you, all three of them. And I finally figured out that this is the way I could be the most helpful to any teenagers or society or anybody else. And I've told many teachers, I said, what you do will last a lifetime with all your students. And I still get emails and cards from students I've had 45 years ago. So it's very important, and I want everybody to understand what you do is very important, and it's especially important today when kids just don't get out as much. They're all on their phone, they're all on the computer. But I've been blessed, to tell you the truth, with the people that helped me all through my whole career, and I just can't say it any other way. It's just fantastic.
Thank you. And we'll turn to your right, my left, and this is Al Canonico. And Al and Mac drove up from Florida this morning to rendezvous at Camp Caesar, at Camp Caesar's 50th and final
is that right?
Conference. And Al was the person that actually started. You want to just tell us a little bit about how this came about?
Yes, it came about 50 years ago. I was 30 years old.
Yep.
And a few of our supervisors in the state attended a conference in Michigan, northern Michigan.
Okay.
And it was for secondary education, teaching the lifetime sports. That was the emphasis at that time, the archery, the golf, the tennis, the angling. When we came back, we were talking about such a natural in West Virginia that we could do this in our state, didn't have to travel all the way to Michigan to participate. So we started looking around and found a place where we can hold a conference, and we initiated it for secondary education because West Virginia did not have elementary physical education. It was required. The next year, though, they initiated 30 minutes of elementary physical education a day for the students of West Virginia, but we had no elementary physical education teachers at all, except in a couple of our largest school districts in the state. So we then decided we were going to give a offer to all the counties to send 5 teachers to learn how to, teach physical education and how to get the children involved.
And how many counties did you have?
50 counties in West Virginia, and not all of them came. We only had about 50 teachers show up. And we had a nice time, a good conference. So the next year, we decided to bring in a man named Ambrose Brazelton to talk to our elementary school teachers. And after he was through with them, they went back, spread the word, and then we had 100, 150 teachers the next year.
Great.
Okay, still no elementary physical education teachers to speak of. It was still teachers.
Huh.
Then the following year, the federal law stipulated that special education teachers had to teach physical education to their students. And the special education department said, can we participate also in that conference?
Great.
And we said, sure. And then we had elementary physical education teachers, special education teachers, and secondary physical education teachers. And after that, the conference grew so big that we decided we would just make it elementary physical education, because the high school teachers were professionals and had their own meetings and conferences. So we had special education and the elementary teachers. After that, after it began to grow, then we found that counties were hiring elementary physical education teachers because the teachers, didn't want to teach it. They had other things to do. And that lessened our load in terms of the type of people that we were working with. We brought in consultants for all over the country and to help our teachers, and that's how we got started.
Well, thank you, Al, for sharing that.
Well,
We're gonna turn this way to Mr. McDonald. Hey, Mac.
Hey, Artie.
How you doing?
Hey, okay, kiddo.
So tell us a little bit about your college experiences, maybe some of your college professors and the influence that they had on your life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, to begin with, in 1955, as a 7th grader, my physical educator, Mr. Kenneth Price,
Uh-huh.
for whatever the reason, inspired me to the point of saying, I want to teach other people physical education like he taught me.
Really?
It was just a real inspiration. And
Yeah.
luckily, I landed at Western Carolina University.
Right.
And the first person that was a great influence was Floyd Seward.
Okay.
And he was the department chair. He was very much a professional educator. We had physical education majors meetings.
Right.
We had at least excess of 120 majors,
Wow.
and we met regularly. We also dressed up, coat
Yeah.
and tie, girls wore dresses.
Right.
Everything was on a professional level.
Right.
Classes were done in a way that learning was important.
Yeah.
And it was a very special time.
Yeah.
And also at the time, that same time, Dr. Otto Spilker was there,
Right.
and he was another influence on a lot of people. And then after Dr. Seward left,
Yeah.
Dr. Hamilton took over.
Right.
And he was another person that just was based on knowledge and professionalism
Yeah.
and being personable.
Yeah.
He cared about everybody, as did most of our professors
Right.
at Western Carolina. So
Cool.
that was the influence that I had.
Thank you. And I'm going to turn back to John. So here's the toss-up question: is there a possibility, John, of you naming that one person in your life that's your personal hero, someone that really stood out? It doesn't have to be a physical education person,
My
but
personal hero is my dad.
okay,
He was always there for us. He was a normal laboring guy. We didn't have much.
Yeah.
Took care of my mother when she was really sick,
yeah,
and just was come out and play ball with us, and
right,
always encouraged us to get an education.
yeah,
And I grew up in the 50s, 40s, and 50s. I have 3 brothers. All of them have a college degree.
yeah,
2 of them have masters, and I have a doctorate degree.
Right.
So their influence on me to get an education and help other people was absolutely critical, especially my
Right.
dad.
And tell us where you grew up. Where did
Grew
you
up in Kansas City, Kansas,
Okay.
which is, at that time when I was growing up, was a pretty small town. Now it's a pretty good size. But anyway, it was a wonderful youth. I can't tell you how wonderful it was. My parents had nothing. We were really poor, but we didn't ever know it. And we were always involved in activities all the time
Yeah,
with my brothers and my dad. So
yeah.
he was my hero, really.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. And then Al, can you share us a little bit about who your hero is and why?
Listen, I've had many heroes in my life, but one I'd like to mention, it
Yeah.
was my first principal, my first teaching job,
Okay.
because I had just begun. At that time, physical education teachers they didn't recognize as
Right.
being very important in the
Right.
schools. She was caring, she was wonderful, she realized the importance of physical education
Yeah.
with the kids, supported me to the nth degree. And after a couple of years with her, I was offered a job at the West Virginia Department of Education.
Neat.
So I went to her and asked her if she would give me a written recommendation.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and says, "No, I'll never do that. You give me the phone number of the person that I should call in West Virginia, and I will call them right now." She called them. I got the job. I assume it's because it was her great recommendation.
And
So-
what's her name?
Oh, Mrs. Johnson was her name. I
Okay.
can't think of her first, so we
Right.
called her Mrs. Johnson.
Yeah.
And at that time, Artie, people may not know, but I taught in Maryland,
Yeah.
and it was a segregated school system.
Okay.
And I taught in an all-black school. It
Didn't
was
know
the
that.
best teaching job I ever had. At that time, parents would come to me. There was no talk about race. Said, if my children give you a rough time, you
Yeah.
just give me a call. I'll take care of it for you. I want them to learn, and I want them to do well in life.
Wow,
So it
that's-
was a different situation as it
Yeah.
is today. I was amazed.
What city?
It was in Prince George's County,
Okay, yeah.
Maryland.
Right.
And she was just wonderful. She
Yeah.
just loved the children, and she supported me and realized the importance of physical education. If it wasn't for that, I don't know if I would have liked it or, at all
Yeah,
myself.
right.
But she really supported me and felt the benefits of it, and I really appreciated her.
Thank you, Al. And we're going to roll over here to Mac. I'm going to ask Mac the same question. Who's your personal hero and why?
My personal hero was my grandfather.
Okay.
He was a retired Methodist minister.
Okay.
He taught me to love every person. And when I was in school, I had that same feeling for every child. And
Yeah.
that's important.
Yeah. Right.
They
Yeah.
need that.
Yeah.
And then other heroes throughout the years, besides the guys sitting right here at this table, were people like Ambrose Brazelton, who's
Right.
been mentioned,
Right.
Doc Seward, Otto Spilker,
Right.
Jim Hamilton,
Yeah.
just to name a few. And again, it also goes back to my 7th grade physical educator, Mr. Kenneth Price,
Right.
who I had the opportunity to look him up,
Yeah.
thank him
Neat.
for what he gave me.
Great.
And that was some 40 years later. And,
Yeah. Right.
he had since retired,
Yeah.
but there's so many heroes. And
Yeah.
as we're going to this conference at Camp Caesar,
Right.
there are people there that, in different ways, they're all heroes to all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. What word of advice, Mac, would you give to a young professional? Maybe he's been teaching 2 or 3 years, maybe has a situation where he or she's struggling. Is there a word of advice?
The main thing is to ask other professionals,
Right.
and almost regardless of their experience.
Yeah.
But it would help probably most to help those that have had quite a bit of experience.
Right,
I'm
yeah.
going to say 10 years plus. At the
Right.
same time, there are some people who right out of college are excellent people that can do
Right,
things for
yeah.
children that can be passed on that would be helpful.
Yeah.
At the same time, you get people who have been in the field many years. They've got some good things to share. You take of that what
Yeah.
works for you. You
Right.
glean from everybody,
Right.
but you try to take things that help you do your best to better serve the children with which you work.
Okay.
So,
And then John, do you care to add, or John or Al, care to add anything to what Max said about just words of advice to a young teacher?
I think it's very important for a young teacher is to never stop learning,
Yeah.
never stop sharing.
Yeah.
There's always people willing to help and support you, so you
Right.
have to go out and seek them and,
Right.
not be afraid to ask for help
Right.
and some advice.
Yeah.
And even some of your fellow teachers and principals
Right.
or whatever who
Yeah.
can help
Yeah.
you. But go out there and never stop learning and seek your best advice from them. Never be afraid to ask.
Okay.
What I call, what they're talking about is honing your craft.
Okay.
You have a craft. Your teaching is a craft. And what you can take from anybody,
Yeah.
doesn't matter what it is, it's helpful to you. It's a great thing to do.
Yeah.
Going to the conferences, I always felt if I got one piece of information that made me a better teacher,
Yeah.
it was worth going.
Yeah.
And I think the other situation, I think that every physical education teacher has to understand what they do is really important.
Right.
I just can't tell you how many kids have come back and said, God, I really appreciate what you did for me.
Right.
And I think they don't understand that, but I think they will in the future once they get a little more mature and a little more experience. But you got to hone your craft every
Okay.
day.
Now, John, you are in the process of finishing up a book, right?
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about your book and.
Well, this is a book. I've been a college teacher for 52 years in 3 different universities, and the last time I was a coach, it was a tennis team, and all of the kids that we had were great scholar athletes.
Yeah.
And we've kind of lost that at the university level, especially in the revenue sports.
Yeah.
But for example, in the last team that finished 10th in the country and won the ACC, out of the 7 players, 6 of them got advanced degrees, 2 physicians, MBAs.
Yeah.
It's possible to be a scholar athlete. We use the term student athlete.
Yeah.
I like the term scholar because you can be a scholar, but in today's world, it's very difficult. And coaches, who are young coaches, I would advise you to try to share the information that you have to improve them in their academic life as well as their athletic life.
Yeah.
And because you're playing a team sport, you're playing tennis or whatever it is for 4 years, or 3 years, or 2, or whatever it is, but you have the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And what you get in college, in academics, determines a lot about how you will come out in the rest of your life. I feel that being a good scholar, it gives you a significant advantage of giving back to our society incredible. And
Yeah.
that's the thing that this book is going to show, is
Right.
how much these players have given back, even though they were able to be great academically and athletically both.
Yeah.
Hard thing
Cool.
to do.
Cool. Well, you let us know when your book is published, right?
Should be done this summer.
Okay, that's cool. Al, you've had a variety of different jobs, right? Elementary physical education teacher,
Yes.
administrator, superintendent. Can you kind of
Yes.
tell us a
Well,
little bit about how they
Yes,
all came
I
about?
went from teaching, as
Yeah.
I mentioned, and then took a job at the West Virginia Department of Education. And
Right.
I think, and I realize the reason I did get that job
Yeah.
so quickly is because they were anticipating requiring a 30 minutes of physical education for every elementary school student in the state of West Virginia.
Cool.
And everyone there was secondary oriented.
Right.
Every college in the state of West Virginia only had secondary physical education
Right.
programs, and I had elementary background. I went to school at Wake University and got my master's
Right.
degree there, so they were familiar with me,
Right.
and perhaps a recommendation came from them. Then I stayed with the department for 20 years as I went not only from elementary physical education, but I did health and safety at the
Right.
same time.
Yeah.
And then after that, I went into and was the coordinator for early childhood education
Okay.
because I was working on my doctorate degree,
Yeah.
and I received my doctorate degree in child development. And after
Neat.
that, I went into the school system as an assistant superintendent, then became superintendent of schools.
Right. Yeah.
And after I consolidated all the schools, I thought I'd better leave the county or get run out. So I then retired. But that's pretty much my background and how I went through teaching, State Department,
Cool.
public
Thank you.
school administration.
Thank you for sharing that. And Mr. McDonald, Mac is, if you don't know, my very best friend. I mean, Mac, between Mac and Jim, it's a toss-up.
It's mutual. believe me.
Mutual, yeah,
Yeah.
very best friend. I have a lot of respect and love for Mac and Jim as well. Any closing thoughts? This will be the last wrap on this
Well,
video?
the thing that resonates most with me at this point is that you can only give what you have to give.
Yeah.
In order to give it, you must have it first. For
Right.
you to be the best teacher you can be, you have to gain all these experiences and skills to give it back to students.
Right.
So you can only give what you have to give. In order to give it, you must have it first.
Okay.
And
Thank
love your students, probably foremost
Yeah.
of everything. Love each student.
Right. Thank you. And John, we're kind of bringing this to a close, and so
Okay.
any last comments, words of advice?
My last comment is always the same, that I've always told all the people that I deal with, is what you do is so critical. You have to
Yeah.
understand that it's really, really important, and you have to take great pride
Yeah.
in what you do. And
Yeah.
that's been my philosophy. And the other philosophy that I always say is, say what you do and do what you say.
Yeah.
You got to be
Yeah.
upfront all the time.
Okay. Thank you. Al?
Physical education is a great profession. It
Yes.
want people to know, because you have an influence on every student in the school.
Right.
More so than the individual teacher.
Right.
So never forget how important physical education is and how important you are to the children
Yeah.
of the school or wherever you're working or teaching.
Cool.
Or
Yes,
can
sir.
I close with a quote from Brass?
Yes, you can.
Physical education is an integral part of the total process, focused on personalized growth and success, striving to enhance through instructional giving, effective, productive, harmonious living. That's physical education.
That's it. Okay, so we'd like to thank Mac and John and Al for sharing this, and we'll post this on YouTube somewhere, somehow. See you later. Bye.